Florida, the Coast Guard, equipped with 2 Air Force helicopters, continued a search Sunday for a fishing boat carrying a pair of NFL players.
The top story tonight, the continuing desperate efforts to save lives.
We begin with the search that continues.
The Coast Guard has been searching for the 4 men since they were reported missing early Sunday morning. That's when a relative of one of the men reported them missing. Oakland Raiders linebacker Marquise Cooper owns the missing boat. Cooper, Corey Smith, a Detroit Lions free agent defensive end, and 2 former University of South Florida players had set out on a fishing trip.
The 2 teams, I believe Mr. Cooper was with the Oakland Raiders and Mr. Smith was with the Detroit Lions.
Now, you mentioned that the Everglades boat is a small boat, but you also said that it's almost impossible to sink.
I believe that's what the manufacturer says. It either is impossible to sink or it is unsinkable because of the
construction.
Coast Guard
says it has found a person clinging to an overturned boat off Florida's Gulf Coast. But it's not immediately clear whether it's the same boat that was carrying 2 NFL players and 2 other men. The Coast Guard has been searching for the 4 men since they were reported missing early Sunday morning. That's when a relative of one of the men reported them missing.
2 guys are missing, 2 NFL players. I'm a little blown away by this story. It's at first when I read the headlines on it, I was like, no. They went out fishing and then they couldn't be found and they sent the Coast Guard after them and everybody's looking for them. Their names are Corey Smith and Marquise Cooper, and they played for a number of teams, but lately the Raiders is where Cooper was, and then and the Detroit Lions is where Corey Smith was. And I thought, no, they'll find them. They just went and took a wrong turn somewhere in the middle of the ocean. They were out fishing in deep water.
The search is still ongoing. We were able to get some additional information yesterday from Mr. Schuyler, the gentleman that we picked up, that has allowed us to slightly refine our search. But I'll repeat something that I said yesterday, that the key piece of information that enabled us to narrow our search down was the location of the boat where we actually found them. We've continued to work drift patterns as to where someone in the water might have gone from there. And then with some information from Mr. Schuyler, which is primarily where they were fishing and at what point in time that the boat capsized. Best of our understanding is boat capsized some point Saturday evening, somewhere around 5 p.m., give or take. Time frames are a little sketchy there. Mr. Schuyler was obviously very exhausted. He was cold, dehydrated, so we're only able to get a little bit of information out of him, but that did help refine our search. Currently, there's 2 Coast Guard aircraft searching, a fixed-wing C-130 out of Air Station Clearwater and an 860 helicopter out of Air Station Clearwater. 3 Coast Guard cutters, the same 3 that have been involved to the search so far. Coast Guard cutter Nantucket, Coast Guard cutter Crocodile, and the Coast Guard cutter Tornado, which was the boat that found Mr. Schuyler yesterday. The plan right now is to continue the search through the day. When the helicopter, for example, is done with their search this morning, they're going back to the air station. They're gonna refuel hot, swap out crews, and then take off again. There's another search pattern planned for them already.
Are conditions any better today?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, conditions are better today. Basically, we're looking at 1 to 3 foot seas, and winds are more in the 8 to 12 knot range, which is a continuing trend over the last day or so.
Why did the boat capsize, and where is the drift pattern taking these?
Drift pattern is taking them generally toward the south. And our understanding is that the boat capsized. They had the boat anchored, and in the process of trying to raise the anchor, the boat flipped at some point late Saturday afternoon. That's our understanding, yes, sir.
Was it anchored when it was found?
No, we don't believe it was.
And how did the 4 separate? How was that story?
We don't have great information on that. As I said, Mr. Schuyler was very exhausted.
Schuyler was the personal trainer for 2 of the men on the boat that day. NFL players Marquise Cooper and Corey Smith. Schuyler was the personal trainer for 2 of the men on the boat that day. NFL players Marquise Cooper and Corey Smith.
February 28th, 3 of my friends and myself went out fishing. Will Blakely, my best friend, who I played football with at the University of South Florida, Marquise Cooper, the owner of the boat, and Corey Smith, both of which had played in the NFL, went out for just a random fishing trip, and we went roughly 70 miles off sea, and After some time, there was a cold front that set in, and we later were capsized.
Called off the search for 2 pro football players and a friend. Now the lone survivor of their capsized boat is talking about what happened during their final moments.
According to a report in the St. Petersburg Times, Schuyler told the Coast Guard NFL players Marquise Cooper and Corey Smith gave up hope, took off their life vests, and drifted away. He says Bleakley held on until Sunday night.
He was very upset, and I said, "No, Nick, we really have to know this. As painful as it is, we just have to know about the last 24 hours."
Schuyler said that none of the 4 men on board were wearing life jackets.
If Will had not been on the boat, that he would have died. That Nick himself would have died. And I'm sure that if Will had survived, Will would have said the same thing about Nick.
Hours after their ordeal began, Will Blakely's prediction that he would not make it another night was becoming a cold reality.
He was starting to foam, slurring, very weak.
Storm was coming. Why go out?
We knew not necessarily a storm, but a cold front, and we kind of played it by ear, to be honest. We knew we wouldn't, if we were going to go out as far as we did, that we'd come in earlier, which was the case. But it was kind of one of those things where there was a particular spot we wanted to hit, being stubborn that we are, we tried that.
Were they looking for any particular type of fish?
The usual, some amberjack, some snapper, some yellow, lemon sharks.
Describe the boat.
21-foot Everglades. I don't know a whole lot about boats, but there was some room, but it wasn't a real big boat. There was plenty of room for the 4 of us, but anything more than that, especially our size, would have definitely been cramped.
Was it fully equipped with emergency safety gear and the like?
Well, it turned out that the emergency things, I forget what it's called. He didn't have one of those, but for the most part, it was all there. But unfortunately, when we needed it, it was underwater.
Who was who was really experienced at fishing and deep sea boating?
Marquise, particularly. It was his boat, and he had been out 1,000 times, and he knew what he was doing. And unfortunately, we all just made a mistake. It wasn't anyone's fault. We just made a mistake.
Now, I understand that 70 miles west of Tampa, you anchor, right?
Correct.
And you fish?
Correct.
What happened?
We knew a storm was coming, like we said, and we decided that, the seas are getting rough, and it's about time to head back, anchor up and head back. And the week before, we had lost an anchor on this, similar reef or shipwreck where we were at. So we attempted to pull up the anchor, and the anchor got stuck like it did the week before. So we tried a couple different maneuvers, and we decided our last ditch effort would be to move the anchor to the back of the boat.
All right, the anchor's stuck. The boat capsizes. Describe what happens.
Anchor up and head back. And the week before, we had lost an anchor on this, similar reef or shipwreck where we were at. So we attempted to pull up the anchor, and the anchor got stuck.
The vessel was towed back to the public boat ramp at Bay Pines in St. Petersburg Beach, where FWC officers inspected the craft and documented the evidence. The vessel was then released to friends of the Cooper family, who took custody of the boat on their behalf. Statements taken from Mr. Schuyler and other witnesses were compared with evidence from the capsized vessel. Evidence from the vessel and witness statements are consistent with one another and painted a clear picture of what took place during the 3-day ordeal. It is the finding of our agency that the cause of the accident was the result of, number 1, the improper anchoring of V1 or Vessel 1 to the port side transom eye bracket by Mr. Cooper, utilizing the 200 horsepower motor of Vessel 1 in attempt to throttle the vessel in forward in hopes to release the anchor from the Gulf bottom, and failure to leave enough slack line or slack anchor line to compensate for topwater conditions. As our findings taken from Mr. Schuyler and other witnesses were compared with evidence from the capsized vessel. Evidence from the vessel and witness statements are consistent with one another and painted a clear picture of
He was born March 11, 1982 in Mesa, Arizona. From an early age, he excelled on the football field.
He just had that passion for football, and he was just, even when he was younger, playing tackle, he had a coach and they were trying to get him from one team that we had in Gilbert to come to the Chandler team.
Throughout all levels of his career, Marquise was always able to...
The captain gave the information to us that he was going to cease search operations in 3.5 hours or around dusk. It got very emotional inside. A lot of people wanted to know why. Why can it continue? And they gave their answers. And I can say, without getting too detailed, as you guys know, paramedics were called and aided in calming people down and medicating them in that regard. Very emotional. From my standpoint, I told my wife and my daughter that the Coast Guard can call off the search, but we will not give up hope that Marquise is out there fighting and trying to return. So that is our attitude. At some point, maybe reality will set in and we discover otherwise, but the time between that is very important, because right now my wife is extremely emotional, and I just need to get her calmed down, and so that's the approach we're taking. Rebecca,
The football player may have saved him. The Coast Guard has found no sign of the other three
Measure
men.
everyone against Marquise. Doesn't matter if they're in high school or in college or in the NFL. If they can do a Marquise Cooper workout, then they got a chance of doing
The
something.
biggest thing I'd like people to know and remember Marquise for is for his undying friendship. I mean, he would give you his last dollar. He'd give you his shirt off his back.
When we were out there, we knew what we were doing. It was cold, it was rough, and I got sick. I just felt my heart rate go 1,000 miles per hour, and then all of a sudden I could barely breathe. Just and even through all this, you know, I've heard so many things, and why didn't he do this, you know?
No doubt you've heard the story and you watched the massive search. It was supposed to be a day on the Gulf. 4 football players set out on a fishing trip in late February 2009. Nick Schuyler, Will Blakely, Corey Smith, and Marquise Cooper. Nick was the only one to come back alive. He was found bobbing in the water 3 days after one of the biggest searches in Coast Guard history.
I don't care if you have a movie, I don't care if you have a book. You can't explain cold. You can't explain scary, you can't explain dark, you know, and the things we went through. So, you know, I don't wish that upon anybody, of course.
Nick has always been a private person, but after the crush of media, he wanted to tell his side of the story as a way to cope. But some people have accused Nick of trying to cash in on the tragedy.
You know, I've turned down so many things as far as money goes that I could have made a quick buck, but it doesn't benefit me or them in any way. Once again, I wrote that book not really for myself, because that wasn't important to me, but for the families, you know, and to set the story straight about their, you know, their brothers or, you know, kids.
Nick admits that Will's father just read the book and is having a hard time with it, seeing the details of those final hours.
The Blakeleys have been very supportive from day one, and you know, and they always have. But they saw it as, look, you need to write a book. You need to get the story out there, and then go and do your publicity stuff. And unfortunately, this kind of went the other way around.
As for Corey's family, Nick speaks with his sister from time to time, but it's the relationship with the wife of Marquise, Rebecca, that seems to upset him the most. She moved out of state and won't talk to Nick. The same goes for Marquise's father.
She had said some things, but she wanted to distance herself from myself and the media, and I 1,000% understand. You know, that hurt. You know, it's sad, and I hope that one day we can establish some kind of relationship, but I respect that. To hear the things that were said about the guys, though, that's the thing that set me off. Because the things, especially about Will, the things that he did for me out there, you know, when it was just the two of us, you know, that's been one of the main reasons I'm here.
moved out of state and won't talk to Nick. The same goes for Marquise's father.
She had said some things, but she wanted to distance herself from myself and the media, and I 1,000% understand.
To a report in the St. Petersburg Times, Schuyler told the Coast Guard NFL players Marquise Cooper and Corey Smith gave up hope, took off their life vests, and drifted away.
His hotel, camera in hand, it's easy to mistake this man for a tourist. But his stops around Clearwater aren't for sightseeing. Bert Wainwright is a director, here to scout out locations for the upcoming movie, Not Without Hope.
It's a story, about facing tragedy at sea and resilience.
Based on the book by the same name, the movie will tell the true story of former USF football player Nick Schuyler, the lone survivor of a tragic boating accident in 2009 that claimed the lives of Schuyler's best friend and 2 NFL football players who were all out fishing in the Gulf when a series of events led to their boat capsizing.
The orange jacket that saved your life. Just curious, you still have it?
Yeah, I wear it skiing all the time. Best jacket you can wear, saved my life, like you said.
You wear it, what kind of, jet skiing?
No, snow skiing.
Snow
ski
skiing.
jacket.
So you wear the jacket that you were in the water. How many hours were you in the water? 40-some hours?
48.
48 hours. You wear that when you go snow skiing?
Correct. Ski jacket, that's what it was for.
You don't feel a little funny wearing that jacket?
At first, covered in salt. And I already washed it too, up to that point. So yeah, it was, I second guessed wearing it, but I said, you know what, I think maybe that was a turning point. So it is what it is, I'm okay with it, and I'm okay with something that helps save my life.
Doctors say Schuyler does not show any signs of post-traumatic stress, but caution that the impact of his experience hasn't hit him yet.
In Virginia is missing boater Corey Smith's best friend, Mario Bridges. Mario, good morning.
How you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing well, thank you. Hearing the Coast Guard captain say that at least at one point all 4 of them were wearing life jackets, does that give you hope that Corey may still be found alive? Where's your head this morning?
It's somewhere everywhere, but it does give me a lot of hope because Corey's a strong guy. He never quits. He has a strong will, determination, strong spirit. So we're hoping that they're all okay out there.